Hi, Teresa.
Thank you so much for joining us today to discuss your journey, purpose, and the backstory behind your company, Those Coffee People.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here. I'm really happy to do this with you.
Before we get started, can you share a bit about what the company does, how it all started, and above all, why coffee?
Definitely. So Those Coffee People is a direct trade coffee exporting company. How we got started, it's a little bit of a long story, but basically I was really interested in coffee as a product, the trade of coffee. Behind oil, coffee is the world's second most widely traded commodity. And if you think about who consumes coffee, it's massive. People across all geographic borders, across different ages, rich people, poor people, people of different backgrounds, people of different races, ethnicities, religions, so many people in the world, so many different factors, they all can kind of come together and share a love for coffee. So with that idea, with the interest of it as a trade, and obviously thinking about Colombia as one of the top coffee origins of the world, these three kind of came together, and it's how Those Coffee People started here in Medellin.
Amazing. A sentence that I've seen across your website is, we don't consume coffee the same way our grandparents did, so why are people still sourcing it like them? Can you explain what this means to your business and why is it such an important motivational factor?
Certainly. So this is actually a core of our business model. The idea is when our grandparents were younger, years ago, decades ago, they were consuming coffee in a very commercial way, being that large amounts of coffee were produced as cheaply as possible and bought as cheaply as possible. And people didn't really know about the farm, about the origin, about the producer, about the process. There was not really much added value, and producers would take a lot of care with their products. And now people are consuming coffee in a totally different way. They care about the origin, they care about the producer, they care about the process. What makes this coffee any different from the other coffees that they have the ability to consume? And so if you're drinking coffee with these factors that are so important, it's impossible to source coffee in this old standard way. And so if people are consuming it in that way that takes more care and attention to detail, how is it possible we could still source it in a commercial way? And that's where the idea of a direct trade exporting company comes in. We're able to give the end customer that direct trade experience rather than just buying it from some massive wholesaler where you don't even know who it was produced by or how or when.
That's super interesting. So could you tell us more about how you source your coffee connections and maybe talk us through the entire journey that your coffee takes to arrive in all the cups around the world?
Absolutely. There's a couple of different models where we would start working with a producer. We can either get a request from abroad, maybe a particular process, a specific type of bean, a specific type of origin, and we go and we find those producers. On the other hand, as we're growing a little bit more in the market, we're getting a reputation for producers who want to access an international market to come directly to us and offer the products. So it can go in either one of those ways, but basically once we identify that the producer and the coffee is a good fit for our portfolio of producers that we promote, what we do then is basically an entire mess of logistics. The entire logistics process, getting something from the farm to your cup, is just a very complex series of logistical procedures. It's getting the coffee from the farm to the mill, milling the coffee, packaging the coffee, doing different quality control, doing different sorting of the defects. And then an entire new series of logistics issues will start where we have to make sure that the documentation is correct, the labeling is correct, the packaging is correct to match that country's importation laws. From there, either a distributor or the roaster directly will take the coffee from the port, bring it to their roastery, and only then does the coffee roasting process even start. We export it green, which means it's raw, it's not yet ready for consumption. And then a roaster will go ahead and actually roast the coffee, a barista will prepare the coffee, and then an end consumer can actually finally drink a cup of coffee.
Amazing. That sounds like an extremely complex journey, and I bet it took a lot of negotiation for you. Something that I'm very interested in knowing is what it's been like for you as an American businesswoman starting and operating this whole business in Colombia.
Well, first of all, it was a little bit of a cultural shock when I arrived. I guess I have that American mentality where, you go to work, you get your work done, and that's kind of it. But here, what I found in Colombia is that people care so much about more of the interpersonal relationships. For example, I would send an email and I'd say, hi, person, I would like this thing. Can you help me? Thank you, bye. But actually what a lot of people do, hi, how are you? How is your family? How are your children? How is the business? How is your health? I hope you are well. oh, by the way, please, do you think you could help me with this? And so I had some first shocks there, but actually it's extremely pleasant to work in that way. I really like it now that I've had the adjustment. But aside, on the idea of being a businesswoman in a foreign country in Colombia, how is that? Before my time in Colombia, I was with a previous company in Kuwait. I was working for a company that made economic reports on emerging markets, and so being a woman in that sort of market was a very interesting experience. It was, I wouldn't say it was challenging, but it was just so different. It was wonderful as a learning experience, and then taking that and being able to come here, it wasn't like it was such a shock or such a difference in doing business as a woman abroad.
So we're here talking for the American Businesswoman Day. Is there any advice that you would like to share with women that are going through the same journey?
Yeah. It might sound a little cliche, but I think that we all ourselves are our own worst enemies, where we instill doubt in our minds, and from that moment of doubt, we start to have our confidence hurt and our ability to try new things. And so the thing that's always been my true driving force is that I never had that doubt instilled in my mind. I don't know, when I was a kid, I never doubted my ability to do something. And perhaps it was, you know, the wonderful support my family gave me, perhaps it was the support of my community, but I would say to anyone out there really thinking about trying something even so crazy to move to another country and start their own business, like if you have confidence in yourself, everything else can only come after that moment.
So you destroy the invisible obstacles even before they appear.
Yes, no, it's critical to do that. Otherwise, if you don't start with a solid foundation of confidence, everything else is going to be a bit harder.
Amazing, that's really good advice. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.